Hello and welcome back. It's time for the next episode of So You Are New to Empyrean. Today we're going to be talking about POIs and salvage. Predominantly salvage, but when it comes to POIs, there's a couple of things that are probably going to be useful to you. So before we get on with that, I want to show you what I have here. This is a massive shout out to Icewolfen. If you don't know Icewolfen, he is an amazing builder and amazing streamer. He is phenomenal. And these are some of the vessels that he's got on his workshop. So I encourage you to go and check out his workshop, go and check out his streams. He's a lot of fun. And yeah, play with some new toys, because we all like playing with new toys, right? So what have we got here? Well, these are vehicles or vessels that are really useful to be able to help you take over POIs, which is over there. So we've got an abandoned outpost. So what we have here is the Ranger. The Ranger is a really good ship to bring in early game. Look at it, it's beautiful. And the reason why I would say this is probably one of the most important things that you can bring to a POI is because of the storage. Now, what you can do is you can use a crate or an already existing storage from the POI. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But the storage from your CV is perhaps one of the most important things, other than weapons, that you can bring to a POI. And let's just give do this justice. The full glory. Look at it. Isn't she beautiful? Look at those skulls. The Ranger is a fantastic vessel indeed. Right, okay, so we've got our CV. What we have here is the gem cutter. Now, this is going to be used later on. This is a salvager. Now, it's a hover vessel, and this is actually made for Reforged. I've just altered it slightly so that it's within CPU limits to make sure that we don't get any funny business when we're actually salvaging. And it's basically a vessel with a cockpit. It's obviously got some fun stuff inside, you know, to actually make it work. And it's got a salvaging turret or a tool turret, which is this thing right here. So that's going to be really useful to actually salvage POIs. What we've got over here is the Drill Goat. Fantastic name, by the way, Icewolfen. I will link Icewolfen's details below in the description section, so it's there for everyone to go and check out. What we have here is another hover vessel, but this is a drilling machine or a miner. Now, it's slightly different to a lot that you see on the workshop because it's open-topped. But I've used this before and it's actually really, really funky. And there's also a Gatling gun there ready to shoot down your enemies. But this is going to be useful because we'll talk about POI takeovers in a second. This is the Icewolfen spawner, tier 1, version 1, level 5. Now this is really handy when you have a more robust POI, shall I say. When the enemies are just keep on piling in on you, you want this in your workshop. So I'm not going to be using this today. I just want to show you as an example so you know that these kind of machines are available on the workshop. So say you're in a heavily fortified POI with lots and lots and lots of enemies. You can make sure, as long as you make sure that you've got ammo in your inventory or close by in a CV, and this is ready to go in your factory. What this does is this has got a cloning chamber on the back here, and it's got some guns at the front. So essentially you'll spawn this in, power it up, put your ammo in, sit in the seat, and you will mow down your enemies. And if some turrets take you out, you've got a clone chamber right there to spawn back into the POI, so you don't have to run from outside and go through all of the levels, because some of these POIs are vast and multi-level, and say you're right at the bottom and it's one of those massive areas right at the bottom, but it's small and tiny on the top and you have to work all your way down. If you've got one of these at the bottom, you can finish mowing down the Xerax or or legacy and finish the job. So there we go. This is really, really useful for those harder POIs. And what we've got here is actually one of my favourite vessels that Icewolfen has built. And I have used this many, many, many times in stream and in just normal gameplay. It is a fantastic small vessel. Obviously, it's got weapons on it. It can fly. It can go into space. But also, it's really good on the resources front. It's really quite a cheap vessel to bring in early game, and it is upgradable as well. So, which is one of the things that I really like about vessels in general. So, you know, it gives us that little bit of a boost to get something in so we can fly around and get some experience, that kind of thing. And then later on we can upgrade it and make it a bit more beefy. So this Ruby, oh, she's fantastic. Now, when it comes to POIs, an SV actually, in my opinion, is probably one of the more useful tools that we've got. But usually I would come in with an SV, blow out all the turrets with my weaponry, and then go in on foot and take it down. So what happens, because we're not going to go in and take it down today. The purpose of this video is not for you guys to watch me take over a building and, you know, do all that kind of fun stuff, because you can watch me do that on stream or you know, in my playthroughs, because that's what playthroughs are for. Let's plays are for that purpose. So, but what we're going to talk about today is, if you don't like running POIs, if you're not really keen on the shooty playthrough, then what you can do is, if you know the POI, or you can find the core, there are ways to do that, which we will talk about in another video. You can actually take out the core without much trouble. So I'm going to come out of God mode and I'm going to show you how to do this. So if we just do that, then we come over here, what we're going to do is we're going to jump into the drill goat. Right, so now we're in the vehicle and we're going to come over here. Now I do know where the core is located, roughly over here. So what we're going to do is I'm going to come over, it's this side, it is, and we're going to slowly, with our drills, and something's actually firing at me. I didn't think there was any turrets on this. Oh yeah, there is, right over there. Okay, right, bear with me 1 second. There we go. That shouldn't be a problem anymore. We don't want to be fired at whilst we're digging here. Right, so we're going to line up and we're going to slowly... We don't want to go in too far, so we're going to keep our nose relatively up. We want to make a pathway. We might have to go and do several passes of this. A little bit more easy. Right, okay. So I think this is roughly where we need to be. I will just check and I'll be right back. We're back. There was a little mishap. Let's just remove that. Let's go down and then we'll talk about the little mishaps that we had. So I was trying to mark off the area by exploding a few little blocks. Well, not a few little blocks, but trying to damage the block. And I blew straight through and destroyed the core. So I've put another core back in there to represent the core that would usually be there. It's red. It has already blown up the generator, unfortunately. But sometimes you can't plan as much as you do try and plan. Something goes wrong, and there we go. So if we just have a look at this, just so you know, that is where the core in this POI sits. So you can just blow with explosive devices straight through and get rid of the core. Now, I think it's 2 bricks down. There we go, 2 blocks down. There is a alien container there which you can grab all the awesome loot out of. And in fact, let's just do that right now. Let's retrieve blocks. There we go. You can access it. You can see that there's some fun stuff underneath there. But what we're going to do now is we're going to look at salvaging. So that is how you take over a POI without really having to fight anything. And I've dug this trench so deep. Hang on, let's just go over here. There we go. And as you can see, I've brought Ruby over because it was, it's Ruby. And that's all there is to it. Right, so let's go back. In fact, I'll tell you what we're gonna do. We're gonna pop Ruby right here. And we're gonna turn her off. And then we're gonna come out and we're gonna go and grab 2 of our devices. Now, it's not always possible to be able to bury your way in and blow your way in through the bottom into a core and take over every single POI. That is not the way that some of them are designed. Some of them have admin cores in. Now, you'll occasionally come across a POI that has a damaged core. You can actually get rid of those. There's usually a lever or a way to actually get rid of the core and for you to be able to take it over. But with a fully fledged admin core, you're not going to be able to. I believe one of the Xerex POIs is like that. And it's just worth knowing that if you can't actually damage the structure going in underneath, you're probably going to have to run the POI, which is then when you bring in your tanks, you know, because that's probably going to be heavily armored and heavily gunned. You bring in your tanks, get rid of the weaponry on the outside, or bring in your SVs to actually take down a lot of the turrets and that kind of thing. So, but with this one, and with quite a few of POIs like this, the Abandoned series, there's Abandoned Bunker, Abandoned Outpost, you know, that kind of name. Usually you can take over the cores and completely salvage everything. Right, now, we're gonna grab our Ice Wolf and Gem Cutter, because that's what's going to be really useful to us. So the great thing about this machine is it's got docking pads on the top. I don't think we've got enough space actually underneath the Ranger to be able to actually dock it to it. So we're going to go and move the salvager over this way. And just have her ready right there. Let's just turn this off for now. And we're going to go and get our ship. What we're going to do is we're going to try and place the CV as close as we can to the POI. Let's turn our thrusters off. Like I said before, if you don't have a CV, you can use a container and pop it out on the front. So let's have a look. We've taken over this POI, so if we're going to come and look at the structure, and we're going to press P. This is mostly my method of how I like to go through POIs. So first things first, go to the O2 and we'll type in a 4-figure number, but I'm going to switch it, the left hand side menu, to the container controller. And then we're just going to press this. And what it will do is it will bring out all the O2 and put it in your container controller. And I'm going to do the same with fuel. Press manage, put in a 4-figure number, and just withdraw the fuel. So we've taken the O2 and the fuel out of here. Now what we can do is you can actually, if you look at the menu here in the devices menu, you can go through, click on your device. This is a container controller for ammo. You can press the access button and then you can press the left button, which basically just shifts everything from the right hand side into the left hand side. So that's from the POI into your ship. And you can go through at the top here every single container and just go through it bit by bit. I would usually start at the top, excluding the fridge, because the fridge, we want to turn it over into our fridge so that the goods don't spoil. Then we go back to cargo pallet, turn this back to container controller, and then go all the way through. But this can get a little tedious. And another way of doing it is if you go and press your F4 menu, you connect the container on the right so it goes yellow and your hotbar goes yellow. You escape out of that and then press T. You're still connected to your container. So, you know, everything that you pick up now will go directly in there. So if I decide that I want to retrieve blocks, and I pick that one up, if you look at container controller, there is a concrete block there. So you can see that it goes directly into that area right there. What I will say though is whether you retrieve blocks or salvage is entirely up to you. So in a single player game, you have massive amounts of control in terms of your construction speed, your blueprint speed, and various things like that. If you're on a server, and this is where this becomes handy, is every full block that you put into your factory reduces the time. If you use base components in your factory on a server, you could end up waiting 8 hours for a build to be done. If you use full components, like full thrusters, full generators, everything that you strip out of POIs, and you use the retrieve blocks on it, that will increase the speed in which your factory works. So the more blocks, more full blocks that you have, the shorter your time, or shorter your wait time is going to be for your factory. So if I had a look at the F2, if I wanted to bring in the shockwave, obviously it's very quick on here because I've set the parameters to instant. On a server, that could take 8 hours for the factory to actually have it ready. With blocks, that could take a minute. Probably even less, actually, just by using full blocks. But like I was saying, in single player, because you can set the parameters, it doesn't matter if you use blocks, you can just salvage everything. I hope that helps. The other side to this is, if you're salvaging full blocks when you're on the server, it's worth noting that if you've got a deconstructor, once you don't need those blocks anymore, just deconstruct everything, and then you can use the components for other things. So, when it comes to actually salvaging a POI, there are various methods. If it's in space, obviously you can use tool turrets on your CV, but you cannot use a tool turret on a CV on a planetary POI. What you can do though is you've got two options. You've got your multi-tool, this in my hand right now, or you have a salvager. So what we can do with that is, obviously, if you've just started and you don't have a CV, you can place a container down. So I'll get one for you and I'll be right back. Right, so here we have a container. What you can do, instead of connecting to your CV because you don't have one, you would connect to the container in the same way. You would press this, and then everything that you find would go into here until this filled up. And then you could put it into your workshop. So one thing that's really useful to have in a workshop, if we go to my library and we go to here, which is basically the all objects tab, what I do have, there are plenty of them on the workshop, is a factory wafer. And this is a massive amount of store resources that you can just throw into there. So you just go to the factory and you throw everything in here and it will count them up. And then when you need to bring in a ship, you can go directly to one of the ships over here you can then bring it in. So one thing that we mentioned is actually taking down POIs. We can just retrieve blocks like we're talking about. So if we can just collect this, that will go directly again into our inventory. Now it's slightly different with something like the gem cutter. If we come in here and we power up, we go to our P menu and we go all the way down to harvest. We will use the multi-turret and we will access it. And then what we can do is we've got some options. We've got retrieve block, repair, and salvage. Again, the same goes for if it's a server that you're playing on or if it is a single player. Salvage and retrieve blocks are exactly the same. But what we have here as well, which is a useful bit of information to know, is there is a repair section on this turret, which means that if your ship has been damaged while raiding a POI, you can just go along with that and you can just fire this and it will repair all of the blocks on your ship. And then obviously if we go to retrieve blocks and we fire this, we can actually use the middle mouse button, we can zoom in. This isn't actually far enough at the moment. So if we just get a little bit further and then go back into P, access, because it'll take us directly there, we can then start taking the POI down bit by bit. But it's important to know that when you're using a device like this, it will have a storage limit. It will tell you when you can't put any more into it, but it's always worth checking because that's what I like to do. I like to make sure that I try and keep on top of it. And if we go to, if we come out of there by using F, and we go to our gem cutter, container control, ore and wood, we can use the top button, push that directly into our container controller again. So it's basically the other way around that you would do it. Your left hand side is your vehicle, your right hand side is your ship, and your turret takes everything down from the POI. Now there is something really interesting to note about POIs in general. It's something that I only found out recently actually. So credit where credit is due. Thank you to Jarvis and Bollinger for the information that I'm about to show you. If we, instead of emptying boxes via the P menu, if we just go to a multi-tool, press F for cargo pallet, we're just gonna grab these, open and grab as we go along. Like every possible container. Right, okay, so say, I know that we haven't, because there's at least 2 more containers that I know about, particularly, I think it's 2 alien containers. In fact, let's go and grab one of them now. Oh, sure, right. Where are we? Oh, we've still got these here. That over to that box. No, container controller, there we go. Right, we know that there's this one here. Throw that there. Let's grab that. Right, so we know that we've got at least 1 more box left over. But have we really? Well, there's a way to check. So if we press our P menu and we auto group, if we look at the cargo box, it says that we've got 2 containers left over. We'll just go back to that. 2 containers left over. One of them is the one that we put down. You can actually mark these by putting them as loot. So now you'll always know that that container is the loot container if you don't have a CB. And that's how you name it. You just type it in, press enter. So you auto group it, and you go to your CPU statistics. And if we go down here, it actually says we've got 5 containers left. So this is the true count of how many containers are within the POI. So if we took those 2 out, the one that we put in and one that we know that's there in the main menu, in our devices menu, this the container MS03 large. So if we go to our CPU statistics, we know that we have 3 left over after that. Well, we know about the one that's near the core. There are 2 other containers nearby. Now, that just might be a table or not necessarily a table, but I know that there's some that are up here. So if we come up this way and come out here, we know that that's one of the containers there. So let's grab the fridge, throw that there. That is definitely one. Also, this POI is great because it's got growing plots as well. So if you're really wanting grow plots in your ship, which is probably a good idea, then to grow food so you don't starve, then that's how you get hold of them, is through POIs. You can make them as well, but stealing them from POIs, or rather acquiring them from POIs, is probably the easiest way to go about it. To event these, we can take those. Let's go grab the door, go up to the top. So what I meant by table is a lab table. So we can grab, if we just go to the fridge, throw that in there, take that, and any other random bits of technology. Oh look, armor locker. And then we go to our P menu again, and then we auto group. You know, we've got 1 cargo box left, which is our loot container. Then we go back to CPU statistics. Oh look, we've got 3. So that means that there's 2. And we know about the other one. So that means that we've got 1 container that we don't know where it is. So what we can do is then... Now I know where this container is. But I'll just show you anyway. So if we come down here, grab this door because we can. We come over to this area. Get our shotgun out just in case of gribblies. We'll check down these little passages. Just throw away this way. Alright, no gribblies. You know that a container is right here. Then what we can do is if we go to our controller, throw those in there, remove this, and then we come down here. So where the core is, nearby, that's our core, and this is our container controller here. Or not container controller, this is the alien container. So we'll take that, yoink that as a cargo box, and then if we again go to auto group, we absolutely know that there's only 1 container, which is our loot container. Go to CPU statistics. There is only 1 container. And that is the loot container. The other thing that's well worth mentioning when you're looking at POIs is there's various ways to go about it as well. You also have your drone. So you can utilize your drone and your multi-tool in a really easy way, which means that if you don't have a salvager and you want those hard to reach places, then you can use F5 to spawn your drone in, and it will work in exactly the same way as if it was you using it in person. Now, the other thing that may be a good idea for you to look at is the structural integrity, and that'll give you an idea of where the building is going to collapse. Because if you take all the bottom plates off a building, it will collapse really easily, but you might not be able to get it all at the same time, or you might not be able to pick it up before it despawns. So if you press N for Norman, go to the debug section and press your structural integrity, it will show up, for the most part, as green. So then what you do is you press escape, and you can see what is in danger of collapsing and what is not. The brighter the green, the more integrity the structure has. So basically, the more solid it is. The more red that it is the more likely it is about to collapse. So let's take this section here. If we get rid of all the blocks around this section, let's just make sure that we're connected, which we are, because we're still yellow. If we just go around, we can start to see that the top of this area is getting redder and redder, going more towards brown and then eventually red. And what will happen is once you click the area that will make it despawn, or not despawn, the area that will make it collapse, is it will fall and it will be bright red, and you've got to pick it all up before it despawns like that. And that will be an easier way of actually collapsing a POI. Now, it's one thing to collapse a little section like that, but if you're collapsing, say, for this whole tower, you're going to miss out on needed resources. So I would go section by section, start off somewhere at the top, maybe this area here, and then go floor by floor, slowly collapsing it, but only once after you've ransacked the place, taken all the really cool loot, and then you're wanting to clean up. So, there we go. I hope that helps. You can also turn the structural integrity off when you're done, and you've got all the devices and everything that you want out of it, and if you just want to leave it, you know, in that mode. It's well worth knowing the structural integrity key, or the end menu, because it can do lots of really fun things. But during gameplay, structural integrity is one that I use quite a lot, because it's just so useful. Anyway, I hope this helps, and if you've got any questions, put them in the comments below. I will hopefully be able to help as much as I can, and I will see you next time. Take care. Bye.